Hi, this is Laurie from To The Trade, and I have Nile here. Hi, Nile.
Hi,
He's back from Italy. We're so
I'm back.
excited. And of course, Todd Howard. We are so excited that you're here with us, Todd. You and I've had a conversation starting off, and I really want the designers. I was excited to get you on the podcast because you just have such a wealth of experience. But introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your brand and who you are.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be on the podcast with you both today. So I'm Todd Howard Ezrin, and I'm the principal of Tobe DesignGroup. We're a small boutique, interdisciplinary interior architecture and design firm in Bethesda, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. Our areas of practice include residential and primarily multifamily residential projects throughout the metropolitan area. But we've been fortunate to work on some projects across the country with a retail cannabis company, designing stores around as I said, across the country, and even got to design stores in Australia, Austria, and Israel. And unfortunately, I
Wow.
didn't get to go to any of them, all
Oh,
remotely.
man.
I
What a
know.
bummer.
I know it really was a bummer, but it was fun, and we actually won an award for one of the stores we designed in California, so that was fun. We've got a small crew. I'm the primary designer, and then I have a junior designer on team, and then we have an operations manager and my sister, who a little bit, who works for
Yes.
me remotely from either Scottsdale or Seattle, doing our marketing and business development.
Wonderful. And how do you think, was there a moment you realized that you could take your business to that level where you did do projects that were across the globe? I mean, what was that, like a pivotal moment for you in your business?
It sort of just happened out of just connections. So I had a very good friend who used to live here in Washington, D.C. and worked for a property management company. And we did a project with her company for a condominium building. And then she moved out to California and started working for this retail cannabis company. And they had been working with a firm in London who had done their branding and, sort of the early stages, but they also became quite expensive. And she knew that we were domestic and could do it, carry out the designs for less. And so she brought us in, and it just sort of went viral for 2 years.
Sounds
And
it
we
like it's
got,
very organic, but like an undertaking,
it,
a
it,
big undertaking.
they
Lots of moving
became our,
parts.
yeah, they became our single biggest client at the time for a good couple of years.
Wow.
Unfortunately, she's no longer with the company, and so we sort of lost that connection. But it was a
Uh,
lot of fun. So and sometimes it was just we had to follow the kit apart and make it fit for each store. But in other stores, we got to put our own stamp on it in addition to the kit apart. So that's why one of the ones we won an award for from the local chapter of ASID.
oh,
Yeah.
that is so exciting. I mean, that must have been nerve-wracking, thrilling, but also I would imagine a little scary because you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket.
It actually that was so it was fun and thrilling because I really honestly never thought that my little firm could expand nationally and do projects nationally and even internationally. So to know that, yes, you know what, we actually can do it. We have the
Yeah.
capabilities. But you're right, having 50% of your client base, so that I was always worried if we lost them as a client. I'm like, there goes 50% of our client base. And so when they actually did dwindle, it was thankfully that also happened at the perfect time where we had enough other business to pick up the slack. And we didn't really, so I just consider myself lucky, but I don't think I ever want to be in those shoes again, where 50% of my client base is one client.
Tricky. I came from the printing industry and that happened a lot for me, like many, many times. I used to kind of consider it like you don't own these clients. They're there for a life cycle. You can't, I had back in the day, Thomas Kincaid was my client for a long time and bought more than $1 million worth of canvas and watercolor color paper and ink and whatever from me years ago. And, you get kind of like complacent a little bit with a client that's a big client for me, it was a dream. I can't even tell you. Like
I'm
now that I
sure.
look back on it, I want to tell
Mhm.
you, like they used to order in 3-month increments and they would just send me over the purchase order. And then I would send that purchase order right on over to the manufacturer. And that was all the work that there was.
I mean, it's kind of, it's easy money in some ways.
It's
And,
easy money. Yeah.
and that client wants to feel like, because they kind of know when they're a
They know
significant
that,
client,
yeah.
so
I
they
mean, they know you're
expect,
going to do anything.
they kind of expect it. But, it's, I've realized that I can't put my eggs in any one basket and
But
anything.
what a great experience, because now you can do this,
Hmm.
on that stage and on that
Yeah.
international level.
Hmm.
And should ever a project come in that was attractive enough for you, that you can do it.
And we're kind of lucky in our business where we can bring in some freelancers if we ever need to scale up quickly. We do have a network of other, not even living here in Washington, D.C. I've had a friend of mine who has her own business in Kansas City, Missouri, help us out with projects when we have been slammed. And, she's remote. So technology has really helped us with that a lot. But I've also realized in all aspects of my business, I can't put my eggs in one basket. I used to have a single mill worker I always worked with, or a single wall covering installer. And I actually, on one project alone, went through 3 different cabinet mill workers. And I literally have PTSD from that experience, because I went
I
from
can
bad
imagine.
to worse to
Worse. Yeah.
absolutely horrific, and
Oh, wow.
I lost so much money on that one project alone that I I said, that is no longer the case. We cannot have a single vendor for any one thing.
Right. And you have to have multiple
Mhm.
Smart.
options. And I think that that's,
It's
just
very
covering
smart.
yourself in those areas too. Like, should you expand? We interviewed a designer who does a lot of work internationally. She is from Sweden too, Christina Richardson. So, and I asked about like what the different, what's the most difficult part of the process? And you would think it'd be like materials, but she said it was actually like just the different systems that were in place there, and that, client communication can be all handled online. People are
Mhm.
used to it now. I
Mhm.
really think COVID did us some favors in this industry, really getting people used to Zooms, and
Hmm.
you don't necessarily have to be there for
You
every single
you
meeting.
don't, but I still love that face to face in
Nothing beats a
person.
face to face.
It's
Nothing, if you can do it, it's great. But I mean, there are times when it's just
I felt
easier.
really fortunate during the pandemic that actually only one client told us they wouldn't let us come into their home. Everyone
Right.
else
Oh,
was shocking. Even my senior citizen clients in this retirement community called Laizure World in Silver Spring, Maryland, were like, come on in. Like, and
Wow.
we did a lot of work in that, and nobody told us no, except for one client.
so you have been a leader in the design business for a long time. What does a day look like in your life? What do you do on the day to day?
So, that's actually one of the things I love about this business, is that I don't have a routine for
Yeah.
day to day. So it's actually really hard to define it. But I will say some of the standards in my day is Mondays are my heavier like admin day. We have a weekly full staff meeting where we go through the priorities for the week, project by project. So that's at least an hour, and we estimate hours for the week. So everyone knows kind of what they're doing and what the expectations are. We talk about deliverables, when our upcoming presentations or installations. And then the other thing that we don't miss is Tuesday, that's Monday. So Tuesday through Friday, at 11 o'clock, we have what we call a daily huddle. And that's just quickly a 15, 20-minute, maybe even less check-in. What are your priorities for today specifically? And do they need anything from me? Because I'm all over the map,
Right.
so today I came in the office, but then we had our huddle, then I had to go out to see a client. Then I came back and I had sat down and reviewed a project with a designer for an upcoming presentation on Tuesday. Then here we are now. So I don't really have a routine other than,
I love that, I mean, I love that works for it. I don't either.
yeah.
I have some things that are sort of routine. Like I do our posting in the morning. I have like an hour or so where I'm communicating with designers, and then I check in again. I do something around 2 or 3, so I do have like certain points that are like that.
Mhm.
Has that expanded out so that and I don't have this down as one of my questions, but I really am curious, like, has that expanded out so that you have a set schedule for yourself, or do you work beyond the 8-hour 5-day-a-week day.
I actually try not to. I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't, but I don't work like 80 hours a week. I'd
I
say,
love that. First of
yeah,
all, I love that.
I think I'm probably maybe 50 hours a week, and I'm okay with that. Because,
Yeah, yeah.
for one thing, I have to always tell people I consider myself one of the very lucky few, I think, in the country. I think a lot of people get up and go to a job that they have to do because they've got to earn a living that they don't really necessarily enjoy, but they've got a family to feed and kids to raise. And I get to go to do a job that I absolutely almost always love, and that it's something that I enjoy. So it's not always work. So but
I find that for myself too. And I love what I do. And people
yeah,
will constantly say, like, Laurie, are you resting? Are you doing? And I'm like, because I think they see me doing too much, what they think is like too much. But I'm like, I love what I do so much. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like work from
well,
texting at 7 o'clock at night, a design friend,
especially if the client, like if I really like the client, I,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
text them. And they're really like, a lot of my clients have become very good friends. And that's also been a really nice thing, like literally become close friends.
I
Of,
love that. I love
so
that.
that's another fortunate thing. But it's funny, my energy as I've gotten older has waned, but you put me down in a shopping district and some of my clients are like, I'm tired, can we stop now? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's only been 3 hours, I'm just getting started. like
Right?
like all of a sudden I have all the energy in the world to go look for stuff.
And they're like, okay, I'm fatigued. I need a minute. I
they
know.
they do, and I'm like, but okay. I'm not. I don't understand, power through this.
Well, Nile just got back from Parma in Italy, and he was just looking around and having a wonderful time.
I,
I mean, I think it's like one of those things sometimes as a designer, you're thinking it's like inspiring when you get to go to markets like that, where you're just, it's not even just about the client, it's also about future projects and what's out and what's new. And
or just new thing.
yeah.
I love accessories.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a designer friend who used to work for me, who's a close friend. She has her own business, and we've joked that we just want to open up an accessory store just to fuel our passion. Like it probably would never make any money, but we just want to buy accessories. And I was just in Mo's collection had invited me out to Vancouver. They flew me out last week for a showroom tour and a party. And I went with my sister, and we went to a little area called Granville Island, and we found this home store. It's mostly from Turkey. The guy makes his own furniture. He has all the accessories all come from Turkey. And I mean, the dollar is so strong in Canada. I could not buy things to come back with. And, it's all stuff, interesting things that I've never seen that, are made in Turkey. It was like a great new little resource.
I love that. I love that. I had a girl, there are two women from the Grand Bazaar that they own the account, the Grand Bazaar on Instagram. I actually owe them a conversation because they just reached out to me not long ago. And I if you're listening, I owe you a conversation. But I've known them for a very long time on Instagram because they were sort of like there in the very beginning when I was starting interior design community on Instagram. And two young women and had made what you could buy in the Grand Bazaar, which is like rugs and accessories and really, really cool stuff in Turkey, and making that accessible online. They started helping all the little shops that you would see in the Grand Bazaar digitize and go
Yeah.
online. And now they're starting to get into like an accessories world where they want to have US distribution. And they want to do that in a big way. And so that's what we're going to be talking about when we do. But it is fascinating to me when now I'm like, why would you want to do it in the United States right now?
I
Of
know.
all
Well,
times, like, it just seems
that's a
like,
whole nother topic, and that requires some alcohol, some serious
Yeah. Oh
alcohol.
my God. Yes.
yes.
In fact, if you guys want to come down on next Saturday, my husband and I are having I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but a what the fuck party part 2.
Say it.
Our first one was a hit. We're doing it. We're going to be reprising these almost monthly.
I
I
love
love
it.
it. I love that.
I love it.
That's
So
amazing.
when you go way back and you think about your first client, how did you get that first client?
When I started my own company.
Yep. When you
So
started your own company.
I also, again, I can't stress enough how fortunate I feel. So I while you were coming and going before you got started, Niles, and I was telling Niles, I'm a third generation Washingtonian. So my parents and my grandparents were all born and raised in Washington, D.C. And I was born in D.C., but grew up in Maryland. And the reason I say that is when you live in the same area for such a long time, we're not a prominent family, but my parents know a lot of people. And so one of their oldest friends had moved into a condo in this retirement active adult community called Laizure World. And she needed a designer. And of course, she's known my parents longer than I've been alive. And so, of course, she had to hire me. So she was probably one of my very first clients. And then she actually, I feel like she's like my godmother. She helped me get a whole bunch of clients in that same community. And then it's just sort of organically grown. So, it probably started off with some, close family connections. And then it's just been through referral and word of mouth primarily.
So when you're working on a project like that, I would assume, like, as one of your first projects, aging in place must be something that you're immediately drawn to when you're thinking, active lifestyle, but you want, people are aging and they want to make sure that they're following the rules that would keep them that way. I mean, like no area. I remember like Missy Beach talking about like no area rugs because of the falls and things like that,
So, this isn't hardcore aging in place. I mean, it was, and these are still very able-bodied people. So we could, the area rug we put down can come up if she ever needed to.
Right. Right.
I mean, and that's when initially started off was more of a decorating project. And I'd say a bunch of our projects, are decorating versus full-blown interior design or architecture. But it's interesting because I had clients recently who bought a condo. They were moving out of their home of 30-something years. The husband had mobility issues or, stability issues even. And she had been a physical therapist as her career, retired. And she was fighting me on putting grab bars and a shower seat in the shower. And I said, and they're in their 80s, and she's already watched her husband fall a number of times. And I'm like, why are you arguing with me? And you're also a physical therapist by training, so you should understand the need for this. She ultimately acquiesced when I showed her how beautiful. There's one shower seat. It's a folding shower seat that I have discovered it's not inexpensive, but when you can't do a fixed built-in seat, this is an exquisite option. It's acrylic and metal. And so it's like it's there, but it's not there. And you can pick a multitude of different finishes. And so once she saw it,
Well, that's one of those things that I think people fight because you don't want the house that looks like the hospital room.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you also want your property that you want to sell to not feel like that when you're trying to sell it someday as an asset.
Right.
So it's scary, I think, for people to, and I know it has come a long way. I mean, there are grab bars that are very beautiful now,
Exactly.
but,
they don't look institutional and
right. They can make it, and you can make it look, really good designer can make it look like it's meant to be there and not for medical reasons.
Right. And so we did, and it turned out to be a beautiful shower. But
I bet.
I also think that they just, it's hard. You don't want to admit that you're frail.
I was going to say, I think the whole the idea that sinking in, you know what I mean?
I think that's
hard.
That's tough for any. I remember when we had to have the conversation with my grandmother that she couldn't drive. And it was like,
oh, that's it. Yeah.
So hard.
Well, it's like
so hard.
My father, I mean, he's 86. He was using a cane. He wasn't using it properly at all. But now he's got this fancy walker. And he actually has taken to that actually more than the cane, where I'd take to the cane more than the walker because, cane doesn't always scream, I'm old and frail. But because I actually sometimes use a cane in High Point when I walk around because I have fibromyalgia and all that sitting and standing and walking around for 3 days on hard pavement wreaks havoc on my body.
Right.
I also realize
plus they look cool. I'm sorry, but a cane looks cool.
I also realize that people get out of your way when you have a cane.
I love it. Get out of our way.
That's true. That's true.
So you started as your own self, and then you realized that you needed to build a team. Well, what was that process like for you?
I actually had a business partner originally when I started the company. There were two of us. That's where the name Tobe came from. It was T.O. for Todd and B.E. for Belinda, who was my business partner. We were very good friends. We're still very good friends. we just weren't meant to be business partners, and we wanted
So that sometimes happens.
and
I've seen those partnerships work out
yeah.
where they're still remain friends and not, and that is wonderful that you were able to
We
remain
had a
friends.
very amicable, and I still consider, and I think she considers, one of my closest friends. We wanted to make our friendship, we talked it through a lot, and our friendship was more important. So once we split up the partnership, and then I would have a part-time design assistant, like a junior designer, someone who was in school, because, it was a small business. Money was tight. You couldn't afford to pay someone full-time. And then I made the leap to, it was nerve-wracking, hire my first full-time employee, and then your second, and next thing you know, we've actually shrunk a little bit over the last year, but it's okay. I'm actually happy about it going into this uncertain economy.
Yes. Yeah.
To not have too much overhead and through employees. But it just sort of started growing. It just was organic based on kind of the need. And then one day, Marcia, my office manager, operations manager, I've known her since high school. We went to 2 different high schools, but I knew she had been a stay-at-home mother. Her kids were grown in college, and I just approached her and I'm like, if you can run a house and manage your kids, you want to come manage the office for me? And, it's just, that's also been golden to have someone, that you can completely trust with your company finances. I mean, that's really hard to find.
It really is. I mean, and you must have, it sounds like you've always made sure, and I love this about you, that your relationships are solid. So that has been something that you uniquely care, because it wouldn't be as good as it is where you're, ending partnership and bringing on friends to work for you if you weren't really good at managing relationships.
So that, before we started recording, when you said something about in our discussion what we had talked about, I tell people when I interview junior designers or other people, if there's one thing I think I've done well in my life and my career, is the relationships I've built, both with, employees, clients, vendors, family, friends. They are probably one of the single most important things in my life. And the relationship is more important than the dollar. I mean, I don't want to lose money. I want to make money, but the relationship, especially with the clients, but even with our vendors and our contractors, I need those to be solid relationships that we watch out for each other. And I joke, I'm loyal like a puppy dog. We had a rep for a furniture company, and she got replaced with a new rep. And I thought he was my rep, but then they told me, so I went to get pricing from him on a sofa, and he said, oh no, I'm not your rep, the hospitality rep is. And I said, oh no, I'm not having that. Because even though he was new to rep that company, I've known his parents and him for a very long time. And I wanted that relationship, and my relationship with that vendor to be with him. And so I ruffled a lot of feathers, but I had him switch.
You got your way.
I got my way because I value, and I felt terrible because the hospitality rep called me up and she's like, are we okay? Is everything, did I do something wrong? And I had to tell her, no, I want you to know that we are fine. It literally had nothing to do with you as a person or your business. It's just simply based on my long-standing relationship with this particular rep and his family.
Right.
We're almost 30, coming up on 30 years now.
30 years. And that value, I have that with a lot of designers that I've known for a long, long time here in the community. And that the designers that were there in the very beginning, the designers that I had meetings with about interior design community, like I'm like you, I care so deeply about the relationship. It's the most important thing to me. And the reputation that I built as someone that people can count on, and that I do what I say, those kinds of things that are just, and in this industry, I think that a lot of designers are really trying to are always, the most successful designers are the designers who really care about the relationship building, that really, as much as you possibly can. It's a very tricky business to maintain relationships in, because so much can go wrong.
Yeah.
It is, but I've been trying to work on marketing. I'm not the best marketer, but I just finished reading this book. I don't know if you can see it.
Generating business referrals without asking. I like it.
So the premise is basically of that book, and it was recommended to me by a business coach, is basically nurturing relationships, doing little touch points and things throughout the years and nurturing those clients that have been sources of referrals without literally asking for a referral, and keeping yourself front mind and center. So,
Well, I love it. I'm actually talking to a group of designers this weekend. I'm going to Chicago for Merchandise Mart has a bring KBiz to Chicago, and we're going to be having a marketing. They've asked me to come and talk about marketing, which is something I do that attracts interior designers. And so as that, I do that. I have a good overview of what designers are doing for their marketing, and I'm always telling you guys, like, you're doing it wrong. You're attracting other designers accidentally, you don't mean to, but that's the language you speak, and that's where you feel very comfy. And so that's the stuff that you're thinking. And I'm always trying to this is the stuff your clients care about. This is the stuff your clients are interested in it. This is the interesting things that might help you. And one of the things that I think would be very valuable is for designers to break that down by month. Like, what are the clients interested in that month? Because it's not something you can tackle in a big way. Like, you're not Wayfair. You don't have that kind of marketing dollar to
right, we don't.
spend. You can't do a bunch of ads. You can't,
And
some can hire a PR agency, but that's incredibly expensive for an average everyday designer.
it is. And honestly, we're actually scaling back our social media presence and doing less social media posting because it doesn't generate us business. Paid advertising hasn't generated us business. This book spoke to me so much because we really are in a relationship business. And I'm going to be refocusing my efforts on developing those relationships. So one of the things I did, I'm a big handwritten note card type of person. First of all, and not to toot my own horn, but I happen to have beautiful cursive handwriting. And
I love
actually,
it.
I'm probably one of the very few people in the country still writing in cursive all the time. And I had note cards made right from the get-go, branded note cards. And I have periodically sent out handwritten note cards to people. But we also worked with a local chocolatier in Maryland who made us a custom box of chocolates with our logo and little icons on each piece of chocolate, and it's all branded. And we actually send that out to our clients when we land a new project with a handwritten note that everybody signed, welcoming them to the firm with a sweet treat to start off the relationship. And
I love it.
I just sent it to a longtime client, just saying, you know what, in this turbulent times, we really need community, and I just want to let you know how much I value you and thank you for all your support. I mentioned the referrals that they've given us, but I didn't ask them for referrals. I just want to let them know I'm thinking of them, and they mean a lot to me, and that their friendship has meant a lot, and I sent them some chocolates to go with it.
I love that. I mean, what I really love when you boil it down is how genuine it is.
Yeah.
It's not.
It doesn't feel fake or,
so
it
that's
doesn't
what this
feel
woman
like position.
also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. That's what she writes about is, there's companies out there that make them look like handwritten cards, but they're really pre-printed and they mail them out for you. But that's not personal. You need to take the few minutes it takes to write a personal note, put a stamp on it, and mail it to them.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. I mean, I've done
I like that.
it before. This year we moved over to printing because I was just I had a lot of them, but I usually do these ornaments for designers at Christmas time where we make a funny ornament and we send them out to designers who want them. We let people sign up.
That's a different thing. If you're doing a mass mailing.
It was quite massive.
Yeah.
It's grown
totally
bigger than I used to do 25 and it was easy.
If I said, I would totally pre-print things. I'm talking about every now and then sending out just a note card.
I love it. I mean, I think that we forget sometimes, even in the world of social media, that social is in it. Social and being a real person and, is in there, is mixed in there. Even if you're doing it personally or if you're doing it social media, to remember the human connection and that is so meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's scary sometimes to do it, but I mean, because I think sometimes people think you're putting yourself out there too much by being personal, but that's how people connect with you.
That's who I am at a core. And so it feels much more natural to me to do that.
Well, that gives me the warm and fuzzy, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it gives your
Then,
clients the warm and fuzzy.
for me to do a social media post is very forced. I have
It
become,
doesn't feel real to you.
no, it feels very fake and staged. And, I remember Sharon and she was in town. We went to a vendor party, and to take one picture to post on social media took like 15 minutes. And I'm like,
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to,
Yeah.
like, can you just take the picture already and let's move on?
Yes.
I
I do
understand.
them pretty quick because I'm just like boom,
Yeah.
boom. But and I will say, social. I have met people I would never have met. I mean, met both of you through social.
That's true.
I've
And
never met.
it has
No.
its value.
Yeah.
But then once
Yeah.
I have that, I prefer the human.
Bringing it together is so. That's why I do these events. That's why I go to High Point. That's why I go to Capus. That's why I go to.
I know. I
I mean,
wish
I
I was
don't really
gonna.
make as many trips as I've been doing lately because I did
I wish I
5
could.
this last month.
I wish I
But
could spare the time to get to Scottsdale, but my sister spends half the year there, so she's going to come to
yeah.
Design Edge in my place.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And I know
Nice.
there's
so great.
a panel with my friend Laura Hildebrand. Is on.
Yes,
Yeah.
Laurie's coming. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
Laura's coming. She's like, no, if your sister, we'll talk later. But your sister, I need a moderator, so maybe she can join me for being a
Oh,
moderator.
you know what? She would. I'll connect you to. She would probably.
That would be great.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest advantage actually of working with family is?
I will say the best thing, first of all, she's really good at what she does. She's a very good writer.
Very bright.
She's an artist. She's a graphic designer by training and was an art director at an ad agency in Washington, D.C. So she gets it. In fact, when I first asked her to come on board to do social media, she was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm like, I don't care. Figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing either. And she did figure it out. But I will say, besides, I love having my sister on the team, is that she cares about the company and the success of the company as if she actually owned the company too.
Right.
And that's also incredibly valuable.
It is.
That she just truly does want to see us succeed and be a part of that.
I have tried from the very beginning with interior design community, and sometimes I think I do a better job than others of making all designers feel like it's theirs. It's doesn't belong to me, because I don't feel like it does. I mean, I feel like so much of the value is in what designers share with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I really have always tried to create that culture of, this is your community. This is yours. I'm just trying to help steer it the way you all want me to steer it, but it's your community. It belongs to you. I want it to be yours. And that sense that how you're doing that. And you're right. I mean, like, these people these touchstone people that really you can absolutely count on, they are as invested as you are.
So
Nile is that for me too. Like, we practically become family.
I can tell. You run
Yeah.
interior design community in the way I run the business. I deliberately named it with a group as opposed to just me. It's not Todd Ezrin Interiors. It's a group because previous to my own firm, I worked for a mid-sized interior design firm and a very large architecture firm. And the architecture firm, it was always, there's no I mentality, it's we. And I very much refer to, I don't say they work for me, they work with me. And, I'm only stepping back into doing more design. I stepped away from it, but because I had a team of designers, they were doing a lot of the day-to-day design work, and I was doing the guiding vision, reviewing their work, doing a little bit here and there. And, as I reviewed projects and their work, I wanted to be very careful and intentional that some of the designs, I'm like, it's not exactly what I would do. And I might have chosen something different, but I wanted to remember that I hired people to do a job, and I'm not going to take it away from them. Unless I completely hated it or thought it was wrong, I went with it because I wanted them to feel empowered to do, because I worked at places where we did all the design work and then the person who reviewed it redid it all. And I'm like, that's a waste of time. You might as well just hire a bunch of junior designers to do your bidding. And I don't want to be that type of employer. I want them to feel very valued and empowered, because that's the only way to scale. if I have to be intimately involved in making all the decisions, you can't scale a company.
No,
And
the owner becomes the bottleneck, and then
yeah, and I don't
that's, you know,
want to be the
yeah.
bottleneck, and I would like to scale it up a little bit more.
So, well, what is the sweet spot for scaling? Because I feel like if you go too fast, right, you lose quality. Too slow, you miss opportunities. So, what do you think is the sweet spot for you?
That's a really good question. And I don't know that I know the exact answer.
Well, it seems like you do, but go ahead.
But I think it comes down to you have to really carefully analyze, you know, if you're running in, if you can't produce the work that needs to be done, and there's capacity to expand and hire someone else and grow, you kind of have to analyze the numbers. But that requires working, I think, with someone who has more expertise in numbers than I have. And that's why we have a CFO consultant that we're working with to help figure that out. I do also know part of it is how much can I mentally take on and expand the company? How many people can I actually manage? And as I'm 56 years old, and you know, when I started working with one CFO consultant a few years ago, and he's talking about future growth and expanding, and I'm like, dude, my husband's is 60 years old. I'm 55 or 54. And I want to expand a little bit, but I'm also trying to figure out what's my end game. Like,
Right.
what's my exit strategy too at this point in my life? I'm not 40, I'm not 45. And, you know, and I would like, so, you know, figuring out my current desk office situation, we have about 1,500 square feet. I've got 4 desks in the design studio. I would like to see those 4 desks filled with 4 interior designers. And that's about, I think, where I want to be.
Right.
You know, I'll be the 5th leading, you know, so we have 5 designers on team. We've got an operations manager. Maybe we have a full-time procurement person again. But you know, that's about where I think for my mental health and capacity, I could see, because I'd also like to see, you know, maybe when I'm 65, maybe I don't want to fully retire, but I want to start slowing down a bit, traveling a bit more, and the business can run without me to some degree.
I love that. I mean, I think that's a dream of a lot of designers. Do you have a succession plan beyond that? Do you envision selling the business beyond that?
No, I don't have a succession plan. And it's interesting. I think I read something somewhere. A lot of designers don't have succession plans. And I have been trying to think about how I could do that, but I haven't found the right.
I personally think you're set up in a way that some designers are not, because the business is not named after you.
Yeah.
I think that's an advantage to having a succession plan.
Yes.
Because and I, you know, this is just from us talking often, that I get from you, you're a very analytical person. And so you probably have very good systems, and that would save a designer who wanted to come in, wanted to start their own business, so much time and money in what you have figured out doesn't work.
We actually do have, I mean, we're continually refining them, but like even just our meeting notes that we take every Monday morning are so detailed and have so much information in it that, you know, and we use a program called ClickUp as our project management. And we have a template that literally is from onboarding through project closeout and every step along the way. So we are pretty systematized, which is good. I think my dream, I would love to have another business partner again, who's probably a little younger and who could eventually work their way up to becoming managing principal of the firm.
Like a partner,
A partner,
you know, that kind
where
of
I could sort of
yeah.
phase out a little bit, still get an income stream from the business, but do less. Maybe
I love that. I love that path
Yeah.
for you, because honestly, I think that that's actually a very valid. I've seen it work for other designers that were able to build the succession plan that way, where they took a junior designer that was interested in running the business and then took them on as a partner, did that full time for some years, and then they could take a more minority seat, but still, you know, still having some profit
And plus,
on the books.
I have
you know?
a philanthropic mission that I would like to develop, and I would like that to be my end exit strategy, is to develop this.
I love that.
Because I do have a philanthropic mind, and there's a pro bono project we're working on right now. I cobbled together a team of designer friends. I read an article in the Washington Post about this guy that got shot, not this past Christmas Day, but 2 years ago, got shot on Christmas Day in a robbery that went bad. He got shot about 12 times and should be dead, but the hospital saved his life. But
Oh,
he
goodness.
lost his job. His wife lost her job. They became homeless. And the article I read was this past Christmas, they moved into an apartment, now permanent housing, but they literally had nothing. I mean, when I say, so I cobbled together a group of designers and we are designing and decorating their apartment for free and getting things donated.
Oh, wow.
But I used to volunteer and we're actually doing more. We're raising money for them. They have a 17-month-old kid who was 2 months old when he got shot. But I used to volunteer with another local nonprofit that was in Montgomery County called Transformations Montgomery County. It unfortunately went under during the pandemic, but I designed apartments for young adults who had aged out of foster care and were now learning to live on their own. And it was so rewarding to do this
That
that
is so amazing, honestly.
I would like to resurrect this nonprofit in a new way. And I really I realize that is what my end goal is. I want my business to survive me and continue so that I can do this nonprofit.
It is a shame that even happens, but
Wow, I love that.
I know it well because I raised my brother's children. My brother was an addict, so I raised his kids. We had one of our own, my husband and I, and then 3 of ours were my brothers. But we went through what was the foster care system somewhat. We were kind of like not quite foster parents. We were like considered relative care, but we were in the same grouping, and it is remarkable the second they turn 18 how much is gone.
Yeah, I mean, they don't.
Resources.
So there's another nonprofit here in Bethesda called National Center for Children and Families, and they have this Future Brown program where they have counselors and they're teaching these young adults to live on their own, but they need a lot of guidance, and they've never had anything that's their own. So we go in and make things that are our own. But
I love that.
I also, for the last 15, I've lost count. I have a party in December. My birthday is December 8th. I started years ago. I call it Toys for Todd. And we partner with the Marines Toys for Tots Foundations, and we collect hundreds of toys each year and raise thousands of dollars every year for toys. And that's we partner with, like this past December, we partner with the Porcelanosa showroom. I've worked with Robert Allen and Century Furniture, and I always do it connected to a showroom. And we also, during the pandemic, started donating money for every project we got to a food pantry in Montgomery County.
So this has been, it sounds like from the very beginning, part of the business is always have a philanthropic part of the business.
It has been. I can't stress. I was fortunate enough to raise in an upper middle class family where, college was paid for. I mean, we weren't wealthy, but I didn't lack for anything. But we were raised with a mind of working with the community to give back. My parents instilled that in all of us to do, and they've always done things and they've set an example. And so I've just followed suit because that's part of being part of a community.
I love that. So you would say that your culture, your approach to leadership is really linked to that sense of giving back. And I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Has that expanded beyond, is that something that you would think that you would want to see grow you do say you want to do this partially. Would that be what you want to do actually just full time if you were able to do that at some point?
I think if I could make that full time and I had income coming in.
Sure.
Yeah, I would love to make it a nonprofit that was self-sustaining, that could expand across the country. Because there's so much.
It makes me like you so much more than I did before. I liked you to begin with, but I mean, the idea that you want to give back in that way, like
seriously.
Well,
it's not, usually that's not the goal of an interior designer. We get, usually the goal of an interior designer that I have talked to, maybe not in the sense truly, but ideally sometimes it's like to have some of the wealth that their clients have.
I
You know what
mean,
I mean?
I will say this. That's what I
Well, two
actually
things can be true.
I
Two
wanted.
things can be true. That's true.
I mean, I would like that partially, and that's what I
Yes.
thought. But it really hit me when I reached out to some of my designer friends to do this project with me. And as we're doing it, I realized this is actually really, I mean, I saw how rewarding it was with the young adults I worked with and what it meant to them. And, to have a well-designed space of their own. And it hit me, and the team that I'm working with, they're so excited and so gung-ho. They've done more than I've even done. And I'm like, you know what? Actually, this is actually really what I didn't realize this is really what I want. I
Right.
I had kind of always in the back of my mind thought, oh, this nonprofit that I volunteered with went under during the pandemic. I'd love to resurrect it. I don't know how, but now I think there might be a path forward. And
I love that.
um,
I really do. I don't think that I've talked to a designer who really had the end game being philanthropy. And so that's
I didn't
remarkable.
I didn't
That
think it was.
and what a neat way to have gone down that
Yeah,
path.
I didn't think it was, but I'm surprised to hear. I mean, I surprised myself, but I'm like, yeah, I think this is what I actually want my end game to be. Because
I think it's awesome.
I do
I mean,
too.
as the parent personally of four kids who have come through foster care, I personally think it's amazing. I mean, I've seen firsthand what kids who don't get adopted end up with, and even my four, what they show up at the front door with, and
Yeah.
it's their whole life in a big bag, and it's
And
just
it doesn't
uh,
have
you
to
know
just be foster care, it could be anybody who's economically disadvantaged.
Right.
yeah,
This
yeah,
nonprofit, I didn't work with anyone, but the nonprofit also worked with single female heads of single female heads of households from low income families. I didn't end up working,
nice.
but and it was usually just in Montgomery County, Maryland, but I don't want it to be just in one county. I want it to be in the whole metropolitan DC area for now, and then see how we could expand it. But
That's amazing.
I love it. I really, really love it. What is this your most proud moment in your career that you've been able to do this kind of
it,
work?
it kind of it is one of I mean, I think one of my proud moments was being able to do projects nationally and internationally, because I'm just a little firm. But yeah, actually, I'm very proud of the things that I've done to help support the community, and that this is realizing that this is really what I want my end goal to be. I want to make
I
enough
love
So
money to have in retirement so that I can just do this as a passion.
So with that being said, what if the journey to your origin story of founding your business, if you had to name it a movie, if you had to give it a movie title, what would that title be?
Dumb luck.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
it. Dumb
I
luck.
like that. That's awesome.
You know what? I honestly think people who say they have dumb luck are the biggest preppers out there. They are the people who are prepared. They are the
Yeah,
diligent.
yeah,
They think it's dumb luck. But
yeah.
everything you have told me
You've
makes
always
me
been
I
preparing.
you were working at
I'm
this. You were
Yeah,
nurturing it
I'm
all
continually
along.
evolving. I do a lot of things. I mean, I'm in an entrepreneur group that's made up of entrepreneurs of different industries. And I
yeah.
get a
See,
lot of advice and guidance from them through an accountability group. Last year, I worked with a business coach who really helped shape me as a leader, and I redeveloped myself. I always feel like I'm wanting to continually refine who I am, how I operate, what I do. You never want to rest on your laurels, because there's always, and I've always tell my team, once you get your feet wet, if you think there's a better way of doing something, just because we've been doing something for years, if you have a suggestion for improvement, I'll listen. I'm, you know, I don't want to say I'm the one who knows it all, because I don't.
No, none of us do. I mean, honestly, there's always somebody in the room I mean, it's kind of the principle of IDC too, really, is that, there's always someone who has a little nugget of something different that you hadn't thought of
Hmm.
that could change the entire game for
Yeah.
you. So just being open to learning and evolving. And it sounds like your foundational relationships with people and then your love of giving back and your analytical side where you really wanted to dig in and learn and grow in leadership has been instrumental in your
Yeah,
success.
it's funny. I was a very shy, timid person up until around literally from 2008. I was
Really?
more of a wallflower. I didn't really wasn't outspoken. And then I had a major mental health crisis in 2008, and I actually was out of work for 4 months. And to be honest, I wasn't even sure. I had been working at an architecture firm, wasn't even sure I was going to ever do design again. I had no self-confidence. I just didn't, I was struggling. I had to move back home for a few months. I took some, and then the economy crashed in 2008. Remember September? Not a good
Absolutely.
time to
Yes.
like exactly quit a job, and I floundered. So this was all before I started my design group, or my firm with my business partner. But somewhere along the way, I also tell people, I know this sounds weird, and I would never wish, I hope I never go through what I went through again in my life because it was a horrible experience. I would never wish it on anybody. But in some ways, I'm actually glad that I did because it also helped shape me to become the person I was meant to be.
Oh,
And it
I
gave
love
me the
that.
confidence that I never had to speak up
Yeah.
and stand up for myself and for my company. I'm very, I do it in a way that's very diplomatic. I don't browbeat people and I don't, but I've been outspoken in many ways, as
When
you've
you
seen
have
on
to be.
Facebook.
When you have to be. Yes. Well, I think you're an amazing leader and you're someone that every designer should be following. And we're going to
Oh,
make
thank
sure
you.
that all of our links go to you. So that all the designers that we have listening are going to be paying attention to you.
I really appreciate it. I mean, I've enjoyed being a part of interior design community and I actually admire what you do.
Well,
I
thank you
think
so
it's
much.
so valuable to our industry.
I love doing it and I love giving back just as much as you do. So we're very aligned, you and
We
I can
are.
just feel that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so
Thank
much.
you. It's good to meet you,
Bye.
Niles.
Have a wonderful time.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Have a
Thanks.
good weekend.
You too.
Thanks.